Yes, Europe is a garden. The rest of the world, and you know very well, Federica, is not exactly a garden. The rest of the world, most of the rest of the world, is a jungle. And the jungle could invade the garden. And the gardeners should take care of it. Should take care of the garden, but they will not protect the garden by walls, by building walls. A nice small garden surrounded by high walls in order to prevent the jungle coming in is not going to be a solution, because the jungle has a strong growth capacity and the wall will never be high enough in order to protect the garden. The gardeners have to go to the jungle. The Europeans have to be much more engaged with the rest of the world. Otherwise, the rest of the world will invade us.
Well, this was Josep Borrell, the foreign policy chief at the European Union, who fancies Europe as a garden and the rest of the world as a jungle. Now, even though he has apologized for his words, but he still defends his position. In his words, the metaphor could have been different, but he still believes that the Europe is superior over the rest of the world. Being arrogant and ignorant and having an illusion about the superiority of a particular geographic location on this world, that's anyone's right, and certainly this man is enjoying his rights, but it is not to say that the people who he believes are inferior than him or the place where he lives, well, it doesn't mean that they are going to accept it. Well, I certainly reject it, and there are good reasons for it. One has to ask the question why this garden has become garden, and that is exactly what I'm going to do in this video, to explain that what the jungle had to endure and suffer for this garden to become a garden. Now, this garden was just like a jungle, just like any other jungle, so to speak, in the world. There was nothing special about it. But it became a garden because it plundered and looted the jungle. It went into Asia, in India, Indian subcontinent in particular, and one of the best performing economies, one of the wealthiest places on this planet Earth was left begging in dire state in 1947. Now, that just did not happen because of a coincidence. And if you look at the wealth of the Britain way it came up, if you look at the scale, how the Indian wealth went down and the British wealth went up, no one needs to be a rocket scientist to understand that that was the process of making this place the garden. How about the people of Oherero tribe in what is Namibia today, where German scientists drove people deep into open lands, exposed them to elements, killed their men, and sent their skulls and bones back to the German corner of the garden to confirm that they were indeed the superior people. Now, this is what the jungle had to experience and endure. Now, how about France? 1960s, when they experimented their nuclear bomb in Algeria and exposed 24,000 people to nuclear radiation. But who cares? They are people of jungle. They deserve that, because the garden always needs people in jungle for garden to remain garden and jungle to remain jungle. How about all the colonial atrocities elsewhere, in Africa, in Asia, you name it? How about atrocities in South America? I mean, jungle never actually came to the garden, so the gardeners had to come up with the idea of building the walls and so forth. No, you will always see it was the garden that went out, reached out to the jungle. And when it reached out those places, they actually were gardens in their own right. It's only when this garden left and came back to its own place, those gardens were left as jungles. And this is something we have to talk about. Now, one might say that those were the things of the past. Fair enough, those were the things of the past, but those are the most important things, because those are the things that made this garden a garden at the cost of human suffering. Right? My ancestors in subcontinent, they had to endure a time where they had to read the boards in precious places where the gardeners could go in there. Mind you, those places were built on the jungle's land, and there used to be boards outside saying that the Indians and dogs are not allowed. That is how this garden became a garden. But this argument that those were the things of the past, that actually isn't the case. Even today in West Africa, going by different studies, somewhere between 16,000 to all the way up to 2.2 million children are working, producing confectionaries because children in the garden needs to eat chocolates. They have no future in Africa. They're nothing children. They're working there as slaves even today because probably Josep Borrell's grandchildren, that if he has one or few, they need to eat chocolate, and that is what you get when you live in the garden. And the rest of the world is just jungle. The idea of protecting the garden is brilliant. I think I like it. But I don't agree with his solution. Because his solution is let's not build the walls, let's engage with the jungle. And I say, no, stop engaging with the jungle. Stop invading the jungle again and again for your needs. Stop overthrowing democracies in Iran and installing Shah, that is MI6 by the way. Stop killing global rulers and democratically elected people. Stop overthrowing governments for oil. Stop killing, let us say, 1 million people in Iraq only because you thought it was cool. And of course, that was not the European war on its own, but the European countries took part into it. So the garden cannot exonerate itself. The garden was very much part of it. So we say, yes, please build the walls so that the gardeners can keep themselves in the garden and leave the rest of the jungle on its own so that it may become garden yet again. Stop engaging, start building walls. We will thank you for it.